Hey guys, my name is Matsumio, and now that we're nearing the end of year 4 for Rainbow Six Siege, I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to finally go over what I consider to be the best and worst defensive operators in the game. Now obviously, these are just going to be my opinion, depending on your ranked or how good you are or the situation. An operator's usefulness or how strong they are is going to go up or down, but the fact that many of you guys have been requesting I make this video for quite some time now, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to finally do so. And so to start us off in the S rank, the best of the best, we have Maestro, Lesion, Echo, Valkyrie, and Jager. You're gonna notice a trend with these first couple of ranks. Any operator that has a gadget that allows them to gather information is going to be strong naturally because that is one of the most valuable things that you can have as a defender. And so with regard to Echo, he fulfills everything that you would want. He's got a strong weapon with access to an ACOG. That's highly desirable. He has 2 drones that can literally go invisible. Everyone in her team can use them, and it also can stop the progress of any offensive operator who is trying to plant the diffuser. He is incredibly powerful. Like, there is no reason why you wouldn't want to use him, and that's probably why he is constantly sidelined every single time that you play in a ranked environment. The same thing can almost be said for Valkyrie. Her gadget is easily the best at gathering information. You can toss 3 of these literally anywhere around the map. She has effectively made IQ one of the most desirable operators on offense so that you can find said Valkyrie cameras so that your team isn't at a significant disadvantage. Now, granted, she doesn't have the ability to stop a plant like Echo does, and her weapon is significantly worse. She probably has one of the weaker weapons on defense if you're not lining those headshots up. But if you actually play around with her for a while and you get comfortable with that recoil and how to use her properly, she's pretty much a laser beam. Like, that thing can be very good at taking people out as long as you have the accuracy, and that's why I feel like she deserves this S rank without a question of a doubt. Now, as for the one operator that kind of deviates from this formula, we have Jager. Hopefully it is very obvious why he is in this category. One of the strongest weapons on defense. His gadget, while he now has some competition, completely neutralizes any nade that flies on in. You want to have this guy on your team. He has the highest pick rate on defense for a reason. As for Maestro, I feel like he's become a bit of a comfort pick to a lot of players because he's just so reliable. His ability to place cameras around the map gathers information for his team, but then he can also deny information by taking out drones. He can zap other gadgets like a thermite that's trying to place his on a wall. He can stop people from planting. If they put down a smoke screen, he can see through said smoke screen and zap them so that they aren't able to actually plant the objective. And while I will admit his recoil does take some time to get used to, it's not the easiest to use, when you do, he is just incredibly powerful in the right hands. And then finally, we have Lesion. He has been one of my favorite operators for quite some time, mainly because I just lean on his gadget to watch my back. If you're playing in solo queue and there's not a lot of communication, if you're trying to cover multiple angles, having a goo that is able to notify you when someone is trying to get a flank off can mean the difference between you winning and losing. And while Ubisoft has tried to go on in and nerf his effectiveness, I think they reduced the power of his weapon slightly. It didn't go nearly far enough to make him a lesser operator, and that is why I think he deserves that final S tier rank. Moving on down to our A rank, we have Wamai, Mazi, Cade, Mira, Smoke, Doc, Rook, and Bandits. This is a pretty thick amount of operators, and I think really the reason why that's true is because Doc and Rook are the backbone of defense. Now, I will admit that Doc is a bit more versatile. I was kind of debating putting Doc and Rook 1 or down depending on your kind of play style, but I just feel like both of them, especially if you're using them in tandem, is always a strong choice. I never think to my teammates, oh no, we have a Rook and a Doc, we're gonna be in a bad spot. It's like, no, having the ability to absorb 1 extra shot with Rook armor and also getting downed more frequently because of said armor, and then having someone that can heal and revive you with Doc is always going to be a potent combination. And while they may not be the most interesting operators to play, their gadgets are pretty standard. I mean, for Rook, you literally just place it down at the start of a match and then that's it. That's all you have to think about. At the end of the day, they are just a really strong choice to have. Now, as for Wamai, I think he is one of the coolest additions into Rainbow Six Siege, and that's because we're finally getting some competition with Jager. The reason why I didn't put him in the S tier, though, is I still feel like Jager, for the most part, is a better option. He does have access to some awesome weapons just like Jager, and his gadget does deal with nades. The key difference, though, is that while he can place more of these around the map, they don't effectively neutralize said nade. And so while I really love Wamai, I think he's fantastic. I mean, that's the reason why I put him in this A category. It's because he's a little bit weaker compared to Jager for why I placed him one below. Now, moving on over to Bandit and Kaid, it should be pretty obvious for why they're placed here, because they are the best, hands down, at stopping offense from getting through reinforced walls. Kaid is able to electrify hatches. He's the only one that has that ability, and Bandit can juggle his batteries to just outright stop offense if they don't have the necessary tools to get through a reinforced wall altogether. Now, the reason why I didn't place Bandit into the S rank, and I really considered it because he is very strong in the right hands, is that I'm finding that his Bandit juggling isn't as powerful as it used to be a couple of seasons ago. With the addition of Maverick, we have Kali, there's Thatcher, all these different ways to stop them. It's becoming more and more challenging to actually perform this maneuver, and I feel like it's slowly becoming not the meta. A lot of bandits, while they're still trying, are nowhere near as successful, mainly because of the addition of Maverick. Now, as for Mazi, while I love and adore this character, I find his gadget to be really inconsistent. You might be thinking that he is essentially Valkyrie, but a little bit better because he's able to deny drones for the offensive team, while obviously Valkyrie doesn't have that ability. But it's because you have to rely on offense to actually use their drones for why I find him to be so inconsistent. There are games where you're able to get, maybe 1 or 2 drones, maybe if you're really lucky 3, but I've had rounds where offense knew that I was playing as this character and then just avoided getting anywhere near the objective. Now, granted, that is beneficial. Don't get me wrong. If offense is too scared to get anywhere near the point because they know that a Mazi is nearby, then that is denying information. That is very, very beneficial. But the fact that I feel like I'm not actually using my gadget as intended can be quite frustrating. And so while I do love this guy, his weapons are better arguably compared to someone like Valkyrie. He has the potential to do essentially what Valkyrie does. It's because he's just a bit more inconsistent for why I have placed him here. And then finally, we have Mira and Smoke, who have been the bedrock of anyone that's trying to anchor for the longest time. When Mira was first introduced, she completely changed the game, in my opinion, for the better. Her gadget, while simplistic, allows you to make objectives that normally were not viable really strong for defense. Now, you can't use her on every map and in every location. It really depends on what walls that you have access to. That's why I placed her here and not in the S tier. She does come with some restrictions, but when you are using her properly, it's basically GG. I cannot tell you how many times I've come across a Mira and we didn't have the necessary tools like a Habana or a Twitch, and it was like, okay, either we have to get lucky here, or we're gonna lose, or we need to push on over to another side of the map. She requires offense to work around it, and it's for that very reason why she's solidified at this high tier. And then lastly, we have Smoke. He has always been a reliable choice. He hasn't changed a whole lot since the beginning of the game. If you've used him back then, you're gonna be comfortable with him now, but his ability to just stop people from planting or just pushing an angle for the last 30 seconds, if everyone else was able to slow down the progress of offense and there's only 30 seconds left, if they have to go down that one long hallway, it's basically GG at that point. Moving on down to our B rank, we have Goyo, Alibi, Ella, Cav, Mute, Pulse, Kapkan, and Vigil. I love Alibi. I think she is easily one of the most underrated operators in the game right now, because when you're effectively able to bamboozle someone, it is one of the best feelings that you can have in Rainbow Six Siege. It does take practice, and I will admit that her gadget can be quite clunky and that it can take a lot of time and practice to get comfortable with it, but when you do, it is so rewarding. Now, Goyo is someone that has definitely caught me by surprise. When he was first announced, I thought that he was going to be terrible. I could not fathom, for whatever reason, I guess I'm just not very intelligent, I thought that there was going to be no reason to use him compared to someone like Smoke. Like, Smoke would just do the job better, but that's not really how it turned out. Him having access to the Vector is incredibly potent. Him being 2 armor, 2 speed, it gives him more mobility compared to someone like Mira. And then on top of that, as long as you place his gadgets properly, having 3 of these things scattered around the map is going to force offense to have to deal with them. And while he does come with some weaknesses, mainly in the form of like Ashe and Zofia, and the fact that a lot of people just don't really know how to use him properly right now, I think that he is a strong choice depending on what map that you're playing on. Now, as for Cav, I considered placing her down one category, because if we're being honest with ourselves, if you're playing in a highly competitive environment, like in your Diamond League, she's not really gonna get a whole lot of use if everyone is communicating and working together on offense. It really requires someone to be off on their own and doing their own thing for her to down them and to then use her main ability. But if she's able to get it off, she basically wins the round for her team. The reason why I placed her here is that the vast majority of the Rainbow Six Siege community isn't in a 5-stack. They're solo queuing. They're just trying to make it work. They're, silver and below, and that's where she is most potent. She has all of those nicknames for a reason, and I think that for the vast majority of the player base, she deserves this B tier. The same thing can be said for Vigil, but for slightly different reasons. He, even if you have a 5-stack and communicating, is gonna be difficult to pinpoint where he is on the map. He could be on the first floor, the second floor, you have no clue because all you see is that static. He is actually a roamer that does the job of just slowing down offense. That's what roamers are all about, kind of making them second guess, but he takes it kind of to the next level because you physically just do not know where he is when he has his gadget activated, and that I think is why he is one of the strongest roamers in the game. Now, as for Pulse, I despise him with every fiber of my being. I hate this character. I do not like the fact that you can be directly above him. You have no idea he's down below because you can't drone out every single part of the map. And then he just takes you out with his nitro out of nowhere because you did stop for 4 seconds. I don't like that mechanic. I don't like it whatsoever, but it's hard to deny how useful he is. Not just for that specific tactic, but also to relay information. His weapons do leave a lot to be desired. I do not like them whatsoever. I mean, once again, I don't like this character, but it is hard to argue that he doesn't bring at least something on the defensive side. Now, Mute is someone that is basically, I think, the kind of vanilla, great first starting operator that everyone should use because he's just pretty much just a well-rounded character. His weapons are reliable. He's got a gadget that does things reasonably well. You want to deny people from getting through a wall? He can do so. If you want to stop people from gathering information, you can put this in doorways. Like, he's just a really well-rounded operator. He doesn't do anything necessarily amazing, but he also doesn't really lack in other categories as well. And then finally, we have Kapkan and Ella. Both of them have decent weapons. Ella in particular got nerfed significantly a couple of years ago. It's hard to use, but once you get comfortable with it, it can be halfway decent to line up those headshots. And really, their gadgets are just a great way at stopping early rushes. If you're going against a team that is constantly just rushing and pushing as hard as they can with like an Ashe or a Lion, for example, this can be a great couple of operators to stop that progress entirely, or at least deal a significant amount of damage so that when you do come in contact, you're gonna have a much easier time taking them out. Moving down to C rank, we've got Warden, Clash, Frost, and Castle. So Warden is an operator. I feel bad for Warden because on paper, he sounds amazing. Being able to stop people from flashing you like a Ying that's flying through a window, or if they're putting a smoke plant down, being able to see what's on the other side and stop it. Like, that sounds awesome in theory. It just never happens. When he first came out, he was 3 armor, and so he has seen some improving. They've been giving him other secondary gadgets. Like, he has slowly gotten better, and that's why I placed him into the C rank and not the D rank where he normally would have been, because he is in a better place. but he's still lacking a lot of consistency. More often than not, you're just better operating someone else because you know for a fact that you're actually going to be able to use those other operators' gadgets. He really doesn't do that very often. And while there are some objectives where he is halfway decent, it's because he's just so incredibly situational for why I don't think that he deserves anything higher. Now, Clash is someone that admittedly I don't know where to place her because she's probably been in the game less than she has been out of the game. She has a lot of buggy issues. If you haven't noticed, she's not available right now because of these very problems. Ubisoft just can't seem to make her work, and so half the time, I don't even have to go against her because she's not even in the game right now. There are players that are amazing with Clash. They do that 360 shield, and then they bring out their secondary and take people out. Like, she can be great in the right hands, gathering information. We've talked about clearly that people that can gather information are very valuable, but I thought it wouldn't be really fair to place her in any higher because she's constantly sidelined because she's never in the game. Castle is another operator that I think can be fantastic in the right hands and in a well-coordinated team. The caveat to it, though, is that you do need to have a well-coordinated team. If you do not understand where to place this, or your team doesn't know how to use his gadget or get the most out of it, he's really lackluster. And so while he can be great at forcing offense to deal with his gadget, either making them use an Ashe or a Zofia charge to get on through, you could have just brought a Jager to that situation to pretty much do that exact same thing. The final operator that we have in our C category is Frost. I love Frost. I think she's a lot of fun. Her weapons, not very great. Slow RPM is not very desirable in a game like Rainbow Six Siege. You want to get a lot of rounds down range just to simply have a higher chance at landing a headshot. She doesn't have that. Her gadget is also incredibly inconsistent. It's very binary. Either it does a lot or it does absolutely nothing, and a lot of times it does absolutely nothing. Ubisoft has said that in the future they want to change that, but obviously that hasn't happened. And so I think that she is enjoyable. It's because of those inconsistencies for why she is the last one here. Working our way down to the D tier, we have Tachanka. When are you going to buff Tachanka? It has literally been years. What are you waiting for? Like, I understand that it probably takes a long time. You're gonna have to rework him essentially from the ground up. But the last time that you buffed him was when you put the shield on his gadget, which I think was all the way back when Bartlett University was introduced. That map isn't even in the game anymore. It is literally been forever. Can we finally buff this character? I have placed him in this D tier every single time that I've done one of these videos. It's literally been ages. Please improve him. He deserves it at this point. I know it's a meme, but please. Yeah, guys, that is about it for my list of what I consider to be the best and worst defensive operators in Rainbow Six Siege. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about my categories. Do you agree? Would you move some operators up or down? Everyone kind of weighs operators differently depending on their playstyle, and so what would your list be? Let me know what you guys think down below. I do plan on making a best and worst offensive video in the near future, but it is going to take me some time. These videos take quite a while to make. Like, there's a lot of editing involved. I got to get a lot of gameplay for every single one of the operators, and so give me some time, but that will happen hopefully in the very near future. Yeah, guys, until next time, have a good one and take it easy.